Thank you so much for joining us today for the Pastor's Potluck Podcast. Here on the Pastor's Potluck, it's similar to a normal potluck where you might get something that you want and there may be something that you just want to pass up altogether. And that's okay. There's something here for everybody. Our goal here is to encourage you and maybe in the process entertain you. If you're ready, let's dig in. Welcome to another episode of the Pastor's Potluck Podcast. We've got a good one today. This is the first time, not that we've had multiple people on, but since we've been back in the new setup that we've had. Oh. Yeah, I know. Pretty exciting. So we're joined today by Pastor Cheryl and Pastor Jessica. And, dude, I'm tired. Sorry. I just have to get this off. So you will see it on my face, I'm sure, if you are watching this. But I know that y'all are in the same boat, traveling back from a different country. Mm-hmm. How long is the flight from Ecuador to here?
If you add it all together, about 8.5, 9. But it's multiple flights.
And multiple layovers.
Yeah. So Guayaquil to Miami is like 4.5 hours. And then you got
That's
like
not too bad.
2.5, 1.5, you know.
I left last Sunday. I left on the 5th, right?
Yes.
I left on the 5th at 5 p.m. and arrived into Guayaquil on Monday at 2:15.
Yeah.
So
she had a different route than us going down.
But they actually only ended up landing 15 minutes before me. Mm-hmm. So like 15, 20 minutes before me. So it was a long travel day down.
Yeah.
For sure.
Yeah, we had a layover in Charlotte on the way down, but we got a hotel and got like 4 hours of sleep, 3 hours of sleep. I don't know. And I had to get up, you know, to go back to the airport. And
I was already on a plane headed to Lima, Peru.
Yep.
I never left airports from 5 p.m. until 2:15 the next day.
Yeah, I'd have just slept in the airport.
Yeah.
With only 4 hours. I mean, you'd have gotten a little bit more
I'd have
sleep.
been fine with that. But we had some older people with us.
Sure.
So, and it was free hotels that somebody used their points. So, you know, whatever.
It worked out.
It was fine. We had, it worked out. But that's what, the first time when I went with Pastor Scott a couple of years ago, that's what we did, was we just stayed in the airports.
Yeah.
And, which, you know, isn't super fun, but it is also sometimes necessary.
Sometimes you got to do what you got to do.
So.
Yep. So talk about like your itinerary a little bit about like what was like the goals and the plans each and every single day whenever y'all did arrive in Las Chakras, and walk us through what a typical day, I guess, for y'all looked like.
Yeah. So the main thing that we were down there to do was the playground build. But the thing that a lot of people don't realize is that like once you get there, you have a 4-hour bus ride from the airport to Puerto Viejo where we're staying. Because it's just, you know, they're paved roads, but they don't have a lot of like interstate systems like we do that would make it a little bit faster. And so, you know, the first day was really just getting there, having dinner, getting in the hotel. But the next 2 days were the main work days, that Tuesday and Wednesday. That was the playground build was the biggest thing. Typically you would have probably a little bit more time than what we did. But it was a unique build in the way that they had not acquired the land until just the Tuesday before we left.
Yeah.
Hello.
Yeah. So we're in our meeting with Kids Around the World, and night, Jackie, who's local, gets on and she says, I just got the governor to sign off on the land. They had a backup option that would have been fully available, but this was the better location because it's just a little ways up from the church, and there's a school right beside of it. And so,
because initially that land was going to be a police station,
Yeah.
correct?
yes. And so they got the governor
That's crazy.
to sign off on it. Like Jackie is an Ecuadorian and her husband's from the States, but they're kind of the leaders of Kids Around the World in that area and the Gen Hope Project there in Ecuador. But so like he always says she's the one who can get stuff done like
She
that. And so
definitely did.
she did. But they were supposed to, like, the land that we were on is kind of in a little bit like it can flood, and so they needed to bring in extra dirt to be able to build up so that way it wouldn't flood. And that was supposed to have apparently been done on Monday, but that was not done. And so it was kind of happening all at the same time. And so it was pretty unique, but both days. So Tuesday was the main day where we had to get a lot done.
Digging
that
lots
first
of
day.
footers and getting like prepping and then
Yeah.
redigging and then
Yeah.
prepping and
Yeah.
then redigging some more.
Because Wednesday was when they needed to pour the cement.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so you had to have all that
Yeah.
done and ready to go for the cement to be able to get done and poured in on Wednesday. But so we worked until, we ate lunch on the bus. Like they brought us lunch and we just sat on the bus in the air to take a break and eat lunch. And then we just went back to work until later. And then you go back, you shower, go to dinner. Then Wednesday was similar, but we stopped earlier because we had home visits scheduled.
Yeah.
So like we got to go down, visit the church, Pastor Vicente, who we work with, who we sponsor, and do some home visits that day. So typically, like, you have 2 days where you playground build, and then the last day is the dedication, the story club and the dedication in your area, that kind of thing. But like they always take you sometime throughout there to go ahead and to be able to see their warehouse, like where all the meals that we pack are stored locally.
Yeah.
You get to see that. They have a new office since I was there last. So we got to see their new office, meet the staff. And they always do an example of the story club, the way that they tell the stories for story clubs. And then you have one day where you get to do some souvenir shopping and some relaxing. And that's typically that.
As you head back
Yeah.
to Guayaquil.
Yeah. And so, yeah.
And we also got to do that Friday. That was Friday. So we also got, on the way back to Guayaquil, we also got to go to Pile, Ecuador, and got to be a part of, on the way there, we actually got to see 3 playgrounds that Kids Around the World has. So that was cool.
Nice.
So not just did we get to see the one that we built, but we also got to see 3 others on the way to Pile. But then once we got to Pile, we actually got to be a part of their kids' story that takes place every Friday at 3 p.m. So we got to be a part of that. Like literally got to be a part of that. I've got video of Cheryl's group telling the story of creation. And fun. Kenneth Kender is a tree, but my favorite is Anthony running around like a monkey.
Well, at first he wanted to be a lion, but so did the other little girl, and we said we can't have 2 lions, and so we made him be a monkey. And then Tom McVeigh was a bird. But yeah, that area actually, like, it was cool because it was an area that I got to visit on the first trip, and it was the same area that the Pastor Fabian is there, and we passed his house on the way there, but he's the one who like really spoke into me when I was there the last time, and so it was cool because it's basically like 4 communities all in the same area, but it's extended, so it's big, but he kind of is somewhat the pastor of a lot of the areas, but yeah, so getting to go by those was fun, but they try to like allow you to experience those things as much as possible. And then, of course, give you the chance to shop for souvenirs and that kind of thing.
Oh, and it was actually kind of cool, too, because when we were in Pile, we had just come from Manta, which is where Anthony was able to get, like, one of the Panama hats. And so they were telling us that the Panama hats and, like, the bags and things that we actually had just gotten in Manta, that actually is where a lot of the straw and stuff comes from.
Oh, cool.
And so one of the girls in my... Yeah, hippie hoppa. That's what it's called. But one of the girls in my group for Story Club, she actually was telling, she was a teenager, she's 17, but she was telling us like she makes these, like she makes those hats. And she was telling us kind of the process of that. But we had just seen all of those, and they had just done a demonstration at the store that we were at. But then to actually go to where they're getting the majority of their, say your favorite word.
Hippie hoppa.
There we go. It was kind of cool to be able to see that. And then to know that these kids, like 17-year-olds, are the ones, I mean, they're making it.
Well, because like in the store, you know, they, which when I went before, they did not do this for us. So it was pretty cool. But in the store, they were saying that it's like typically passed down through generation. And so like you have, you know, the women typically are the ones who weave and do that part. And they said that like, there's not as many of the younger generation right now that have been taking that back up. And so, you know, they're kind of a little worried about being able to continue it because some of these younger people are not wanting to do it. And so knowing that there is a few like was really cool to do. But they just went through the whole process for us in the store. And that was pretty cool.
Now, Pastor Jess, this trip almost didn't happen for you.
Yeah.
Which is kind of crazy because now looking back on it, you can kind of, we obviously know, like God had a plan and a purpose and a reason for you to be there.
Yeah.
Couple weeks before the whole trip, you have a knee injury.
Yep.
Which is requiring surgery. So it's not like a tiny knee injury or I just kind of, just twisted it a little bit.
Yeah.
Like this is requiring surgery. So obviously you're not able to do the heavy lifting of things and help, you know, move these pipes.
She did a lot.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think for me it was, and if I cry, I am. So I think that for me, like Cheryl was talking about on Thursday, I think it was, we went to Kid Story and Pastor Steve asks us, what is a crisis that you've gone through recently? And I was partnered up with Marie Zwick, and immediately when you said that, I was like, it's literally everything that had led up to coming to the trip.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Because there was a very good possibility that I was not going to be there. And I'm so thankful that, it wasn't the ACL, because I do think that would have prohibited me from going. Mm-hmm. But knowing that, I was able to go, I was able to do, I didn't feel like I was a hindrance. That was one of my biggest concerns, that I would slow the group down or whatever the case may be, but I didn't. It was actually really funny. There's a gentleman, I never got his name. I have no idea what his name was, but on Tuesday he sees us and he comes by and he gives me his water bottle. I'm standing there talking to one of the girls from Kids Around the World, Amy, and he gives me his water bottle and he shakes his head no, and he points to my knee and he gives me his water bottle to hold. Like, you can't do anything. But it was cool because in those moments when I did have to take a break or whatever, I was able to build relationship with people that were sitting or, you know, whatever. And I really enjoyed getting to know some of the people from Kids Around the World, especially Amy and Melissa. They're here from the States. And so just kind of hearing their stories and things like that. And so not the reality of me not being able to go was very real. It was also very scary. And I feel like for me, it was definitely an act of faith and an act of trust because I didn't know.
Yeah.
But I'm so thankful that I got the opportunity and the privilege to go, because literally it wasn't until the week before. I mean, that's why I had to fly different than everybody else, because when we found out that I got hurt was literally 2 days before they were booking their flights. And I couldn't give Cheryl an answer. Like, I couldn't tell her like, yeah, book my ticket because, you know, I'm going. I couldn't give her an answer. And so I was like, I can't. So I guess my answer is no for now. But even in that first call I had with Cheryl after I got hurt, like even in that moment, saying no to her just did not feel right. Like it just did not feel right. And I just felt like there was some reason that I needed to be on that trip. And I still don't know maybe what that reason was, but I do know that last week was what I needed. And I feel like God definitely showed up. I had prayed numerous times leading up to that trip. And even last week while we were there, I have in my journal that, you know, I would see God, not just in the big, but in the little as well. And so I definitely feel like I did that. I definitely feel like I saw God, not just in the big, but in the little. And it's exciting to see that when we came back on Sunday morning, I put together like a little slideshow for our kids in the E-Zone, and they were just so excited. And I told the kids, I said, you know, these kids know about you, but now you know about them. Yeah. And so I'm just thankful that I had the opportunity to go and to be a part of it. And God was able to use me, even though I didn't know if I was going to be able to be there.
Yeah.
So.
It's one of those crazy things that, you know, whenever you have the initial conversations about going on one of these trips and you really feel that God's like telling you and leading you to do that, it's being obedient in the midst of a lot of uncertainty. And obviously with, you know, a major medical, you know, situation that you've got to go through, obviously, because what is it, in 2 weeks you have your knee surgery. It's still being obedient to those things that God has asked you to do. I don't know that it was necessarily I think God always puts us in situations to test our obedience. And yes, we do trust him. And yes, we do listen to him. But continuing to say yes, even in the moments whenever we don't want to say yes, or somebody else tells us to say no. And there
obedient. Was a lot of that.
And I think in your situation, being obedient in that was, you got to see the fruit that came on the other side of that. You created those friendships and those relationships with people that are with the organization who we partner with here in the States. You not only got to do that, but you also got to make an impact in the Ecuadorians' lives in ways that you will never, ever begin to see on this side of eternity. You know, there's going to be some little kid that's going to come up whenever Jesus comes again, and all of this is made new, and they're going to be like, you know what, because you said yes, like I was introduced to the Jesus that you guys had, and because you said yes. And that's one of the things that people just don't realize is like there's more at stake whenever we say yes to what Jesus is saying than anything we could ever see or imagine or comprehend. He sees this whole big picture. And because 9 people said yes to the call from Southridge Church, there's a huge impact. Not only just the 9 people that went. You got to think about the hundreds of people that helped donate towards this playground. You got to think about the dozens of people that helped buy out the church property that is right down the road from the playground. It's like this crazy stinking domino effect that happens whenever we just say yes. We said yes to paying off this church property. We're going to see in 3 years, because of our obedience and Scott's obedience to saying, hey, if we pay off the church property, our debt's going to be taken care of. And it's not just, it's like this crazy one little seed that happens. You had this 2 people that initially said yes to, let's go scope out the area with kids around the world, and let's go see what Las Chakras is all about. That was whenever you and Scott said yes. And so it's just because of that first initial yes that has opened up these opportunities for a whole bunch of people to say yes. And now you can't take back. You can't take back what has already happened. So it's like the continuation of always saying yes to God, and we will never ever understand why we say yes or why God asks us to do these things. But it's crazy the impact that we have had, and we've only gone once.
So that word that you just said, once. You said one seed once. So that is something for me that I think stood out for me last week. On Wednesday, we got to go to Pastor Vicente's church, and he was talking to us and said that a few years ago there was a earthquake that had come through. And when that earthquake came through, a lot of people left. Like a lot of people left, and that meant not just Las Chakras, but they left the church. I mean, there was no one. And there for a while, he and his wife and family were ministering to one family. Like there was one family in their church. And he said, he actually said, he said he was starting to lose faith a little bit because there was just this one family. And he said he was praying and praying and praying. And he's like, God, you've got to give me a sign. And he said he went to sleep and woke up and there was no sign. So he went back to sleep. And he said when he went back to sleep, he said that he just saw the number one. Like he said, it was just this one. And he said, and that's all I could get was just this one. And he said, and it was like God was telling him, if not for anyone else, it's for this one family. It's for this one family is the only reason you're doing this. It doesn't matter because this one family, they're what matters. And then on Thursday, we started the morning. That was on Wednesday. Thursday morning, we started the morning off at the warehouse and the offices. And we listened to Steve do his kid story. And it happened to be about Moses. And excuse me, it happened to be about Moses and how there were, this decree had come out that all of the baby boys were to be thrown into the river. And what was so special about this one? Like Steve says, he said, the way they do it is they kind of ask you to kind of not challenge, but like ask some like extra questions, like discovery questions about it. Yeah. And Steve said, well, what was so special about this one? Like, why was this one so important? Mm-hmm. And when he said that, all that my brain could do that morning was to go back to what Pastor Vicente had said the day before, was that it was all about the one. How many other thousands of baby boys had been thrown into that Nile River, but here's this one boy who is going to be picked from this river, and he's going to have a life-changing moment happen for him. But it was one person. And then from there, my brain just started thinking like, it's literally one Pastor Vicente in this one area who did it for one family that's now turned into 60 plus people in his church, who is literally doing it for, we did one playground. We did literally the meals that they get are called one meal. Like that is actually what it's called, one meal, and how that one meal is making a difference in the life of so many people. And so it was just like that one has a ripple effect. It's not just a one. The one can become many, but it has to be the faithfulness of the one before it can become the many. I mean, even just these kids that are coming to Story Club, a lot of times it may just be one kid that's coming to Story Club, but that one kid then goes and tells their mom, who tells their dad, who tells their grandma, who tells all the other kids in their family or all the other people in their area. And it becomes this ripple effect of just one and what that looks like and what that goes to. So when you said that just now, it's like, we've been one time. Yeah. We've been one time. We've planted one small seed and we don't know what that's going to do. Yeah. We've only seen a very small part of, I think, what God has in store for Las Chakras, but not only that, but what God has in store for Southridge Church in Las Chakras. Yeah. And it's just really cool to be able to see that.
Well, I think it intertwines just with God's story, because we see over and over again that God cares for the one. Yeah. I mean, the what seems small to others is important to God. And so I love that. And I think like the way that they tell the stories at story clubs, their method is beautiful, because they have the kids retell it. Basically, there's at least 2 retellings of the story where the kids are involved, to where then they can go and share that story with others. Yeah. They remember it. And the method works for not just kids, but for all. And
I'd never heard the story of Moses told like that before.
Yeah.
I mean, it was awesome. It was it really was. It was the coolest thing ever.
Yeah. It's really awesome. But like just seeing, because when you're talking about obedience and saying yes to things, like the way that God worked through just what he placed on each person's heart to do or to bring even is what we saw played out like so beautifully. Because
talk a little bit more about that, because this is a crazy story that I've heard.
Yeah. And so when we first arrived on site to do the playground build, no one really knew, like no one in the community realized what was going on. Pastor Vicente had been telling people.
That's a funny police station. It's got a slide.
Pastor Vicente had been telling people, I'm going to get you a playground. I'm going to and people thought he was crazy. But we arrive and we're getting off the bus, and like Marlon, who is our, he's the kind of the support for Las Chakras and several other communities, but Las Chakras. And he's one who I was super impressed with last time because he taught himself English. Like he's just a cool dude. Anthony and him hit it off like so well because they're both kind of geeky. But anyway, but so he like waves me over. He's like, Cheryl, come here. And I'm like, all right. And there's these two older ladies. And he said, they didn't know what was happening here. And I told them that we were here to build a playground. And they said, oh my goodness, like we've been dreaming and praying for years and years that our community would have a playground. We prayed for our kids to have it. And even though our kids didn't have it, our grandkids are going to have it.
Yeah.
And so I said, well, God provides. Like, you shouldn't ever stop praying, because even though it may not happen in the time that you want, he does answer, and he's provided this now. And like, they're in tears, you know. And then, like the school's right here. So playground land here, little road, school. And all the kids are watching. Well, the like principal of the school basically comes over to find out what's going on. And we're telling her, and she's asking more about kids around the world, like, and what this is. And we tell them about Pastor Vicente and everything, because I think what was also really cool was that like they want to set up, I think Steve and I were talking at dinner or whatever, but they tried to work in such a way that the local pastor, the local church is the hero, is the one, not kids around the world, not us coming in, you know, these random people coming in from the States, but the local church, the local pastor. So all the, you know, communication, we're bringing it back to him, and then we're telling the principal about him and what they're doing, and the story club with the one meal opportunity, like, because those go hand in hand. You have to go to and attend and register for a story club to get the one meal. So she finds out about it, and she says, like, she comes back later and she says, I have 60 new kids for your story club. 60 new kids in one day.
Yeah.
So he says, Pastor Vicente's like, great. And then it's like, where am I going to get the supplies? I don't have the supplies for 60 new kids. Where is this going to come from? And he's like, well, God will provide. You know, he's like, God will handle it. Well, so we're at, you know, the warehouse, and we're opening up all the stuff, and like people, Marie, others, which you can ask them about why they felt led to, but like Marie and Mitch both have gone to Nicaragua multiple times, and they take usually like suitcases full of supplies and things that they need down with them to leave there. But so we had asked in our meeting, you know, hey, what can we bring? And they had told us some things. Well, they had decided to bring colored pencils and crayons and paper and paints and all of this stuff. Enough for that 60.
Yeah.
And then some. So like, we get to present him with this during the dedication day. Like, we bring him over, and Anthony starts telling him about it. It's like, hey, like, you heard like that you had 60 new kids, and you were like, where are the supplies going to come from? Well, people that came on this trip knew that they should bring some supplies. We had no idea that you were going to have 60 kids added. You had no idea, but God knew. Yeah. And God worked it all out, and here are your supplies. And like, his reaction was so like, at first, I mean, he's just like staring, like, what?
Even when Anthony was telling him, I don't think it fully
it wasn't registering.
No, until he turned around and he saw that suitcase. It was I mean, I have a picture, and it's my favorite probably of him, he's just got his hands raised, and he's looking up. Yeah. And it's like the best thing ever.
Oh yeah.
And so it was like this, almost like this common theme of like, God provides. Yeah. And like, you know, and the one, like, throughout, like, if one is obedient, God will provide. And even during the story club, like, that we experienced, Mario, who was kind of our leader that led us, our team stayed with us, was with us the whole time. He and I were partnered up, and like, it was just this whole thing of like, hey, when God invites you to do something, like, he'll pay for it. He'll take care of it. Like, he's not going to ask you to do something that then he doesn't, you know, in turn give you what you need to do it. Yep. And so like even with the story of Moses and the women, like there was nothing like super special or out of the ordinary. Like they literally just took what they had and the situation that was presented and trusted God to take care of it.
Yeah.
Like it had to have taken a lot of trust. Like Mario said, like why wouldn't she just go ahead and throw the baby in the river? Like at least it would be a quick death. Like, you know, like in his mind, like, cause you know, we think differently, like, but in different countries, but he's like, you know, I've always thought like, wouldn't that be more merciful? Like, wouldn't that be more of a caring thing instead of putting your baby in a basket to possibly starve to death in the river or like, you know, whatever. But it was like, they just took what they had, did what they needed to do and trusted God in the process. And that's what, like, for Pastor Vicente, like I love his heart because like he's not from Las Chakras originally. He was called to there. And then like he pursued kids around the world. Like he found out about it and he pursued that connection because he knew that was going to make a difference in his community. And so even throughout it and throughout, you know, the discouraging periods of time and whatever, like he's now seeing God's fruitfulness and faithfulness in it all, that like if you remain faithful, like you get to see God's faithfulness at a different level in those moments.
And he even said something about like now people believe him. Like people now believe what he said.
And I said because of the playground.
Because of the playground. Like he had promised and so for so long that he said, you know, a playground is coming, a playground is coming, a playground is coming.
It's like Noah, right? Like it's gonna flood. Everybody thinks he's crazy, right? And then it happens and they're like, oh.
And it's like, oh, this man actually practiced what he preached. Like he told us he was going to get us a playground and he did. And that, I mean, like even just the impact that's going to have on his community and his church, like that is huge because now people know that if Pastor Vicente says like, you know, God's going to provide, like it may not be today, it may be 5 years from now, but we remember when he said he was going to bring us that playground and now that playground is here, like we can trust what this man says.
And what's so cool too is that like, I think God even provided exactly what we needed for this trip because of the unique challenges of the build, like our team of 9 plus their few like kids around the world employees would not have been able to get that done. But like Amy and Melissa from Kids Around the World were not actually going to come and join our build. Like they were going to go just visit all the other places. And they were like, hey, do you think we could join this team? Would they welcome us in? You know,
Melissa was telling me on Friday that she was very adamant once she got there. She said, I told, not Melissa, I'm sorry, Amy. Amy was telling me on Friday, she said, you know, I was very adamant once we got here. I told Melissa, I really think that I want to experience what our teams experience. She said, I want to be able to tell people like, this is what I experienced. I didn't just go and see, but I went and did. Like I was able to be a part of it. I was able to build it. I was able to do it. I was able to do those things.
Marketing
and she's only been there for 3 months.
So like,
this was her very first trip.
So so now she has that like full experience to be able to really cast that better in their marketing. But like, so like they weren't supposed to initially be with us. They were with us. Plus like the community level of involvement, like so they had told me all along, like it won't just be you all, we'll get people from the community to come alongside you and help you too, because we want people in the community to come and work and we want you to welcome them in because we want them to have ownership of it. We want them to know that this is theirs and them to really feel some ownership so they take care of it, so they do this. So initially I didn't really realize that this was not normal. But they kept telling us, like, every night at dinner, they were like, the level of involvement is not normal. This is what we'd love to see, but it's not what we've ever seen before. Because I'm telling you, like, when we say the dirt was coming in at the same time, we had dug holes, and then the holes had gotten filled with dirt, and we had to redig the holes. Like, the poles were in the holes, but, like, you had to clear them back out. And it's not just dirt. It's, like, rock. And so it's really hard to get out and shovel back out. And like, even at one point, like Mitch comes over because I'm doing my best and he's like trying to tell me, okay, I'll take over. And I wasn't wanting to stop. And he's like, okay, I was trying to not be rude, but now I'm telling you, you have to get out and let me take over. And I'm like, okay. But like the people, like that first day, there maybe were a few people sitting around watching, but honestly, from that first day, everybody got involved. Like the two older ladies, they have a shop a couple doors down. They brought, and it's got this big canopy tent that they keep out front. They had brought that down closer so we could store the equipment underneath.
Yeah.
They brought another canopy so that we would have shade to sit and rest, and chairs to sit and rest. They kept bringing us coconuts. They cut fresh fruit. Like somebody else came up the next day with a trunk full of dragon fruit, that he sells that for a living, but he just came and was giving it to us. Like
they came by one day with a big bowl of
papaya and watermelon that they had cut
just
fresh,
brought it around,
coming around like the one man that you were talking about earlier. Like he brings me like almost like a little orange or tangerine. Like he brings it to me and it's like, and I'm like, okay. And I open it up, I eat a couple, but I'm like, they feed you so good. Like I think Kids Around the World is very strategic in the way that like they put you in nice places so you sleep well, and they feed you well so that you will work hard, like so that you can have the rest you need so that you can get the work done.
It is hard work. But that family, that those ladies that you're talking about, they even opened their home is in the back half of their shop. They even opened their home to us to let us use their restroom, and then behind them they have like a coconut area, like a coconut grove type thing. And so like all their coconuts, like they have the little like house or whatever that all the coconuts are in, and then they also have hammocks attached to it, and they were like, you can go take a nap on the hammocks, like you can.
They told us, they were like, if you need a rest, you come lay on the hammock, you take a rest, like but they were so extremely helpful, and I mean those
hospitable.
Like,
for sure.
But like even they said, a lot of times we end up like we pay people who are sitting around to help mix the cement because we need them involved, and we know we don't have enough to do it. So we'll say, hey, if you will do the cement, we'll pay you. Like often they end up paying people to get help. They didn't pay anyone.
Yeah.
Like these men, I mean, it's back-breaking work with shovels in the water, like to mix that on the ground and get it over there and put it. But like there was, once they fill with the cement, then someone needs to come behind them and wash the cement off the poles and off the playground that's splashed so that it doesn't dry on there. Yeah. And that lady, I should have gotten her name. I'm going to have to be like, what is her name? I know her granddaughter's name, Valentina. But anyway, so like she's going through with her bucket of water and rag and like washing everything down. And when we left on Wednesday afternoon, there were still at least like one huge area, which meant like you're talking probably 8 or more posts that still needed filled with cement, and then that needed filled back in with the rock and the dirt, and then the gravel on top of that.
Yeah.
And spread out. Like when we left, that's how we left it.
Yeah.
And we were like, I felt bad leaving. I was like, man, I really want to go see Pastor Vicente's church and all this, but like I felt really bad leaving. How's this gonna get done? I mean, like that's what went through my head.
Yeah.
We pulled back up the next day for the story club and dedication.
I was not expecting to see what we
like,
saw.
So I'll get to there. But actually, like when we went back by that evening, because you didn't get to go back by, but our home visits were up in the mountains, so we went back by, and the older lady was still out there. Like everybody was still out there working. Community people, no Kids Around the World people, community people were still working. She's out there. The gravel that they use is real thin and it has a lot of dust. So she was watering it down so that with a hose, so that way it would compact the dust. So that way the next day it wouldn't stir back up. And she's washing down the slide with the hose. Like she's getting all the dirt off. We pull back up on Thursday and there are streamers ran. All of it's completely finished. They put several like potted plants out, a really nice heavy duty trash can with lid.
Yeah.
There were lights strung up that I didn't even see that day, but we got a video later the next day of kids playing in the evening after it got dark.
Oh, that's awesome.
Because they strung lights up so that way it could still be used in the evening. And also probably so it would be lit in the evening because like when we first got there was a lot of standing around waiting to do stuff. But so I was like, let's pick up trash. there's tons of beer bottles, lids all over the place, you know. So it's a place that people, and even the grandmothers had said that people had drunk, do drugs, that kind of thing in the evenings, because it's just an open lot. Like, yeah. And I don't have any worry that that's going to be happening in that area now, because I think
those two ladies,
they're not going to let it happen,
because it's literally, I mean, it's literally right beside their house pretty much. And I don't think that they'll let anything happen to it. No, they're pretty protective.
Not at all. But I mean, just to see that, it was so cool. And then the whole like fire department came out and did a little puppet show and all of that. The principal brought over kids from the school to do a dance, and 2 boys shared like what the playground meant to them. And, you know, there's this whole, all this stuff, but like so many people. Yeah. And I just kept sitting there like, this is wild to me. Like, this is crazy. And I think one of the like sweetest things throughout it all is that like there was someone on the trip, I won't name him, but this said like, I wasn't excited about building a playground because I didn't get it. Like, I didn't understand, what's a playground gonna do? And then he was like, I get it. Like, I get it, that it all connects, it all ties together, and how much it means to these people and how much they need it, and how it's the heart of the community, and how it connects them to the church, to the Story Club. It's just so cool.
I think I think for me on Thursday when we did the dedication, it was one of those things, it was almost overwhelming a little bit. There was so much to see, but also just the excitement and the joy, and not just from kids. Like I have a video of like a grandma trying to go across the monkey bars, and she was so excited. And like, then they're holding there are these little, like, I have a picture of Valentina, and her grandma is holding her on this playground, and she's just grinning, and you can see the smile on her grandma's face behind her. And there was just so much joy and excitement. And it's, I mean, we've talked about it, and I think we talked about it while we were there, but like, that's a playground is something that a lot of times we just take for granted. Like, we have one at our school. We have one here at our church. We have one at the local park. Some people have them in your yard. Some people have them in their backyards. Like, those are things that we just take for granted. And, you know, to see the joy and the excitement on their face, like, they could not wait for that caution tape to come down. Like, some of them were climbing over the caution tape.
Like, we had to like leave it, because a couple people started trying to take it down beforehand, and they're like, no, you have to leave it up because they will get on it. Like, as soon as you start to, they will swarm. And they did, for sure. Like, we hadn't even gotten the caution tape off when they got over there. But it's just awesome. Like, because then, you know, that just shows, I mean, so much. Like, they erect a sign, like they put a sign, which is cool. And it has all of that on there. It has the scripture on there. It has our logo on there. It has Kids Around the World. But like, everybody knows that that's in connection with Pastor Vicente right up the road. Like, literally a couple minutes walk up the road. And so like, when we left Wednesday and we got to go to his church, like, I had been there 2 years ago. I was the only one of the trip that had been there and seen the old church and where it was. And so like, we were walking up, and I had walked past the concrete slab. I had walked past it and then did steps back, because I was like, wait, that's where the old church was. Like, I knew, so many of you listening may not know the story, but so like, when we visited before, we had found out that the land that the church was on was not actually owned by the church. It was a member from within the church. And there was a lot behind there that was open and available for sale. And Pastor Vicente had sold stuff to put down a down payment and was trying to purchase it, because they knew if anything happened to this land or this lady, they'd lose their church. They'd lose it. So within that, Pastor Scott hears from God that says like, hey, if you want your debt paid off, you're going to pay this debt off first. Well, that was done. Like, it got paid like the day that he had talked about it, and in our service, like it got paid. But it got paid. And it was about 6 weeks after our trip when he finally had announced it and shared about it. but and it was paid. But so I had not expected a whole lot to be done. Like I thought maybe some walls and stuff, but like I didn't expect. I thought dirt floor. Like I just. It's only been a year.
Yeah, you didn't expect.
And the amount of funds that they might need to be able to do those things, like I just didn't expect it. So when I walked further and I saw, like, they have a covered area and what I believe are the new bathrooms that are fully functional, not the one in the little shed that I had to pour the water in to get it to flush. But like, and that area is bigger than the first area. And then you go under and through into the church building. And it's concrete floors, concrete stage that's built up and painted, fresh paint on the walls, nice chairs, like all lights, of that. I mean, everything. I was so overwhelmed.
Yeah.
Like, I was just like, what? Like, so cool, so overwhelmed, where like I had to step outside because I was like, I'm just bawling. Like, I can't right now. Yeah. And so it was like, one of the cool, like, there's so many cool moments, but it was one of the coolest moments to be able to like know and have seen what was there before to then see what has been done now. It was like, I kept just feeling like this was step one of our For the Future campaign for our church. Like, to me, that was step one.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like, and seeing God's faithfulness in that, like, just gave me so much excitement and encouragement for like, what we're going to see of his faithfulness here through in our church.
It's
awesome. That was definitely being in that church. I mean, I hadn't seen it before, but being there, I was very similar. And there were a few of us that it just like, that was a very, I feel like Wednesday, mess. I feel like I will say, like, I feel like Wednesday was a very emotional day, but, and not in a bad way. Like it was very much like, we had just seen God moving in ways that I did not expect or whatever, but being there and sitting there and then listening to him tell his story and tell just the story of where he was and where they are now and how they see God moving and how, you know, if you look over to the left-hand side of the wall from where we were sitting, like he has a list of like 12 to 15 people that he considers church staff, where a year and a half ago, it was just him and his wife doing this. And so it's really cool to just see how that one family has now grown to almost 60 people. And there's a lady that lives right behind there. And that was one of the houses that we got to visit, that my group got to visit. And, this particular lady, she was homeless basically, and she had nowhere to go, and she was living. So
she actually was the one who owned
that
land
lot and lost everything. She lost everything
before.
And she literally lost everything. She had nowhere to go. And she went to Pastor Vicente and was like, I need help. And so he was letting her live in the church. And sometime between then and now, they have built her a home, and she has a home that sits right behind the church, and she basically takes care of the church because when we left, Marlon gave her the keys back to the church. So she's the one that kind of makes sure all of that's done. But just to see that that faithfulness is just continuing, and I don't know, it was just really cool.
And like, I see so many parallels with him, and that's what's beautiful, I think, that God has done, is that I see a lot of parallels between the way he leads in his church and ours. Like, is that he even had talked about next steps and like equipping and empowering other people. And I feel like we're all about that here. And like, to see him, you know, giving other people leadership and that type of stuff. Like, we're very much into that here. And then they even, I think it was Stephen with me that said the same verbiage that we use. And maybe he realized it, but I don't think he did. But he said, you know, when he was saying we want him to be the hero, he said, we want the local church to be a church that the community can't live without. He used the same verbiage. And I was like, oh my goodness. And then when we did our home visits, like, we split into two groups, and like our group went up in the hills. Like, we had to drive a ways. Like,
y'all were gone for a while
to get there. And like, our church is like there's some people from close by, right?
Yeah.
But there's a lot of people who go a distance to get here.
Well, all of us do. I mean, even just the ones that are sitting
30
here.
minutes away, you know? And I'm just like, so much so to where like that first home that we visited right down the road, there's another structure built and they'll do a story club there. Yeah. So that way the people don't have to come all the way out of the hills to get there. And like, and then the other family we visited, you know, they had built like even like a church building on their land to be able to hold services there on their land.
Yeah.
But the last thing that I'll say is about when we did the home visits, what I think surprised a lot of people, which I knew from going before, was how much they not just appreciate the meals, but it's the vitamin packs that are within the meals that make a huge difference. Because a lot of them, they have stuff on their land that they can eat from, but it's that their diet's not very varied, and so they don't get the nutrients that they need. So those vitamins are huge. And so Marlone shared a story about Derek, who's in our Hope Zone. It's the little boy who has sickle cell anemia. And shared about how before one meal in Story Club, he was extremely lethargic, barely had any energy. His medicine that he needed to take for that would make him extremely sick, and he couldn't hardly handle it. When he started Story Club and got the one meals, his mom took the vitamin packs to the doctor and was like, can he take this? And the doctor had said, yes, this is all the stuff that I told you he needed to take in order to be able to handle his medicine. And so like what she wasn't able to provide before is now being provided for free to her. And after 6 months of that, he is playing, energetic, able to take his medicine. So much so to where he tried to tell his mom he didn't need the medicine for sickle cell anemia because he said, I feel good.
Yeah, we saw him on Thursday. And he's running around carrying a baby, just like, we're like, what in the world? Like, where'd this kid come from?
It's such a huge difference that like those things, you just don't realize what we take for granted and think like vitamins, like big deal, you know?
Yeah, one of the things is there's so many great stories that I've talked with individuals that have gone on the trip, and I just want to encourage whoever's listening is to go have coffee with somebody that went on this trip and block out some time and just be able to hear these stories. You know, go out to lunch to where you could sit down and eat and talk together about what God did on this trip. And I'm sure that you'll be surprised that through this, you got to be careful though, because God's going to ask you to go on this trip. So, but which is not such a terrible thing. It's actually a wonderful opportunity to just be obedient. You know,
Cheryl actually asked us one day last week. She said, "How do you go back and basically have others catch the vision? Like have others catch what we've done here?" And I do think, like, we had one person say, like, I don't think you can. And I do agree with that to an extent. I do think it's very hard. But at the same time, in the conversations that I have had with people, like, it was really cool. It's been really cool to talk to those people and tell them about what has taken place and to see the excitement. Do I think that people are going to fully understand what we experienced without being there? No, they're not.
They'll never.
But to get maybe a bird's eye view of what took place and to see the excitement and things that we have. Like my kids were so excited back in the E-Zone on Sunday to see some of the pictures and things like. My kids
saw pictures from you before they saw pictures from me.
Well, that was
they told me all about
that
it.
Was actually really cool because we did have like, so Anthony and Cheryl went, so I have both of their kids in the E-Zone, you know, Landon and Olivia, I went, but then Paul Tom went also, and then Connor had not just his dad went, but his grandparents went also. And so like it was really cool because we had all these people who had family members that were on this trip. And so they were so excited. And my favorite was when Esme saw a picture, there was a picture of Anthony and she goes, "Hey, that's my dad." Like she was so excited. But they see those things. Like, do they fully understand what we experienced? No. But they at least can see that like, this is something that my mom did. This is something that my dad did. This is something that my Aunt Jessa did. My pawpaw did, you know, whatever. And Olivia was mad at me before we left because she wanted to know why she couldn't go, you know? And so it's like those things. I feel like if we can just get just that little bit of excitement, just that little bit of, you know, this is what we got to do. And just one person catch that excitement, what that could do for the next time we go. Because I don't think that's our, I mean, I know without a shadow of a doubt, that's not our last time being in Ecuador. That's not our last time being in Las Chakras. And so just to know, like, this is where it is now, but to see where God is going. And just like you said, like, I do feel 1,000% agree. I do feel like this is the kickoff to another part of this For the Future campaign. That was one of the things that Scott said, why he liked Kids Around the World and this Las Chakras stuff, was because it wasn't just a one time, we're going to go and come and that's it. It was, we're going to go, we're going to come, we're going to go, we're going to come, we're going to keep coming and going, and we're going to support you, and we're going to be there with you. And so I do think that that's exciting. And I do think that this trip, while people don't fully understand maybe exactly what we experienced, they have the opportunity to experience something very similar the next time we go. Yeah. Because I can tell you that I have done a lot of missions trips, and this was nothing like I had ever done before. And it was definitely eye-opening for me. But it was also really awesome to be able to experience it with the people that I got to experience it with.
Yeah. Well, yeah, I hate to cut it short, but we're going to segue to something that y'all possibly had while you were in Ecuador. It's called a mystery meat.
No, listen.
I guarantee you I had
everything that we had was good.
I did. What'd you
everything
just say?
We had was good.
Well,
I did get Jess to try fish.
I tried fish, and I also tried octopus, Jared. You would be very proud of me.
What, did you like it?
I did not.
Oh. Get out of here.
I think it would. I can't. I don't want to talk about it. It gets me just a little bit.
All right. What is your go-to guilty pleasure song?
Guilty pleasure.
I don't know.
Like,
I hate the song questions.
She's not good at the songs.
Well, do you have to sing it for us? I know you don't know the names, but you got to sing it for us.
Please do.
Like, what's the song that, like, it always comes on and you're like, oh, this is like, it's like ultimate pick me up, or just getting something done?
Well, lately my pick me up song is Joy Comes in the Morning by Church of the City.
See, you know
and
that song.
Anakin asked me to play it on the way home last night, and it was so cute. He said, Mom, can you play Joy Comes in the Morning? And they were all singing it because that's how much I've played it. My kids know all the words, although Esme always says Joy Comes in the Morning ahead of, like, too quick every time, and that drives me crazy. But yeah, that's how much I've played it because they all know it.
I don't know that that's a guilty pleasure song.
I don't. Well, you said picks you up when you're in a bad mood. Hey, I don't know.
I'm thinking like "Wake Me Up Before You Go" by George Michael or Wham or whatever it is.
Walking on Sunshine.
There you go.
Walking on Sunshine. Jess, do you have a song?
I probably have too many songs, and some are probably not songs I need to listen to. I know, I'm the worst.
Well, see, that's guilty pleasure. But
then let me just be honest. It is Gold Digger by Kanye. What? That is just honest.
So I would have to say,
for those of you who couldn't hear, Anna just sang for us on the other side of the room.
I would have to say, I don't know that I have a guilty pleasure song, but I have guilty pleasure bands. Okay. And it's
in
kind
sync. I know.
No. Worse than that.
Oh no.
So ABBA would be one of them.
That's not bad. That's not awful. You are the dancing queen.
Yeah, dancing queen. Or Take a Chance on Me. Down, that song. Yeah. Or I like Fleetwood Mac a lot. Love Fleetwood Mac.
See,
it's like guilty pleasure stuff.
Oh, what's that song?
Oh, she just got excited.
Hey, hold on.
I forgot
the words. Hold on, I'm trying to think of the words.
Listen, now that song's going to be stuck in my head.
Because, yeah, I've got some of those in my head.
The ABBA song's going to be stuck in my head.
I'll think of it way later, and I'm gonna come back and be like, "This is a song," but I'll have to play it for you on my phone because I have too many other songs in my head right now. Because
Well,
Dancing
it is
queen.
that time to say goodbye to all our company.
So long.
MICKEYMOUSE. That's the end of the Mickey Mouse Club.
So Mickey Mouse
And
Clubhouse.
it's the end
Come
of
inside,
this
come
episode.
inside.
So y'all have a wonderful day, and we'll see you next Friday for another episode.
Bye.
Thank you so much for listening in with us today. We really appreciate it.
She said,
If you haven't done so already, go ahead and hit that subscribe button. You can also follow us on social media, on Facebook, Instagram.
I gotta go pick up my
You can also watch the video version of this on YouTube as well. All you have to do is search up the Pastor's Potluck Podcast. From all of us here, we want to say thank you, and we'll see you next week.